Fame was meant to solve everything, but for Adam Lambert, it opened doors he never expected and wounds he never saw coming. His life became a tornado of praise, criticism, controversy, and unfathomable pressure the instant he sung Bohemian Rhapsody in that audition room. What transpired after the camera stopped rolling was far more challenging than any performance on stage. Adam is a worldwide celebrity now, but his journey there was paved with struggles, heartache, rebirth, and unsung triumphs that are hardly discussed. Adam Lambert exceeded expectations when he took the stage on American Idol in 2009. The judges were astounded by his a cappella performance of Bohemian Rhapsody, and in a matter of minutes, a San Diego theater youngster had gained widespread fame. However, Adam had no time to get ready for the tidal wave that fame was about to unleash on him while spectators applauded his unexpected ascent. He had barely finished his final performances in Wicked when Idol producers told him he needed to abandon the show to compete. And in a matter of months, he transformed from a working stage performer to a well-known figure. For someone who had once regarded himself as a loner in middle school, the newfound attention was overwhelming. What the viewers didn't realize was that Adam's personal life was already under examination even before the finale. Rumors about his sexuality intensified week after week, overshadowing his singing and performances. The pressure got so great that Adam subsequently acknowledged he had to consider whether notoriety was worth it, whether celebrity was something he actually desired or something he had been deceived into chasing. When Chris Allen's name was announced as the winner, Adam's fans were disappointed. Headlines accused the country of homophobia. Oped said that his passing demonstrated that the world was still unprepared for someone like him. But Adam, scared and worn out, realized something more profound. The most important item was already gained by him. Even before finale night, record execs had convinced him they wanted him. He would be signed, recorded, and thrust into a limelight greater than that of Idol, regardless of the outcome of the voting. But the reality was more brutal than it appeared. Adam was no longer merely a competitor. After he stepped off the Idol stage, he was a target. Every action he took, every attire he wore, and every trace of his identity he embraced became a topic of public discussion. As the world scrutinized his legitimacy, he was now expected to represent an entire community, carry an entire legacy, and defend every last bit of it. What should have been the best moment of his life rapidly turned one of the most dreadful. Adam Lambert entered the studio with the goal of demonstrating that he was a true artist, with vision, edge, and something to say, rather than a produced TV vocalist following the chaos of American Idol. His audacious debut, For Your Entertainment, which was released in late 2009, combined pop, rock, glam, and theatricality in a way that the American mainstream was unprepared for. Adam received his first Grammy nomination for What I Want From Me after the album, which opened at number 3 on the Billboard 200, outsold Chris Allen's effort. From the outside, this looked like a triumphant beginning. Adam, however, was engaged in an unexpected battle behind the scenes. The pressure from the public over his sexual orientation quickly increased. Retailers sought a replacement, less gay record cover since the original image made them uncomfortable. For an industry still afraid of LGBT honesty, his label thought he was too much, too theatrical, too brash, and too prominent. The more Adam attempted to embrace himself, the more he was urged to tone it down. And then came the night that would follow him for years, the 2009 American Music Awards. Adam gave a controversial performance aimed to honor freedom and artistic expression. Instead, it generated backlash so fierce that it nearly wrecked his career. Conservative organizations expressed dissatisfaction. Networks blocked the West Coast broadcast, and ABC canceled many scheduled appearances. Adam later stated that he didn't expect the double standard to be so severe. More outlandish things had been done on stage by straight artists without repercussions. But when he kissed a male musician, kept a dancer on a leash, and pushed boundaries, he was punished in a way that highlighted the homophobia still lurking in the industry. Maybe that was too far, he suggested years later. But to many, he had just done what numerous performers before him had been praised for. Adam had to battle for his position in the business in the months that followed. His persona frightened the gatekeepers, not because his music was bad. His goal was to become well known for his voice, artistic ability, and vision. Rather of highlighting his abilities, every argument, interview, and headline centered on his identity. This was not the glitzy start he had imagined. Before his career had really started, it was a struggle for survival. By 2012, Adam Lambert confronted a crossroads that most emerging musicians never had to confront so early in their careers. The outcry from the AMA controversy had calmed, but its shadow still lingered over him, affecting how labels and executives saw his marketability. Instead of fleeing, Adam doubled down on his talent and created Trespassing, a brave, shamelessly personal record that highlighted his progress and the vulnerability behind the gloss. When it debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200, Adam made history as the first openly gay male artist to top the list. It was a landmark event, one that embodied pride, defiance, and resilience. But even with this triumph, the business still wasn't ready to give him the independence he needed. Behind the scenes, disputes with RCA grew. Executives wanted his third album to be a collection of 1980s covers, safe, nostalgic, and risk-free. Adam refused. He hadn't spent his life battling for honesty simply to become a polished tribute act for someone else's comfort. The negotiations flopped, and in 2013 he walked away. On paper, the breakup was mutual, but on an emotional level, it served as a reminder of how frequently he had to stand up for his right to be himself. When he joined with Warner Brothers in 2015, Adam made a move that would reshape his career. Working with Max Martin and Shellback, he made the original High, a record significantly more somber than his past efforts. Gone were the exaggerated glam aesthetics. Instead, he explored moodier sounds and emotional honesty. The change was hailed by critics, who referred to the album as musically mature and even implied that simplicity had become his new superpower. Adam was not giving up on his identity. He was developing faster than anyone had anticipated. Adam, however, quietly acknowledged that he was on emotional fumes in spite of the praise. Years of scrutiny, pressure, and scandal had taken a toll on his mental health. He felt worried, tired, and unsure of what success really meant anymore. He realized he needed something greater than a successful album or a spot on the charts by the time he finished his tour for the original High. He needed to regain his love in music and to remember why he had stepped on stage in the first place. Adam's journey with Queen became a test of identity, perseverance, and emotional fortitude. If his solo career was a struggle for independence, the cooperation began quietly in 2011 when Brian May and Roger Taylor requested him to play with them at the MTV Europe Music Awards. The world was in disbelief. This was not an act of homage. Adam's voice soared with a power that felt both familiar and new, reflecting Freddie Mercury's spirit without ever seeking to replace him. It was enough to sprout a seed that would transform the trajectory of his life. By 2012, Adam and Queen started playing full-scale performances. In 2014, Queen and Adam Lambert embarked on their first international stadium tour, reviving a band that many thought would never be complete. Performance after performance sold out. Critics complimented Adam's jaw-dropping range and his ability to resuscitate tunes that formerly belonged to one of rock's greatest giants. However, few performers could handle the responsibility that accompanied that acclaim. Adam had to stand in the space Freddie Mercury once occupied. An hard job for anyone, let alone a man whose every move was still scrutinized through the lens of his sexuality, appearance, and public past. He freely said that he didn't want to emulate Freddie since he thought it would be rude and insulting. His goal was to respect the music without diminishing the guy who contributed to its creation. Adam felt the pressure every night, even if the audiences welcomed him. Millions comparing him to a legend, millions questioning if he was worthy. The tours grew larger as the years went. Asia, Australia, New Zealand, Europe, and North America. Stadium after stadium demonstrated Adam's ability to uphold Queen's heritage with dignity and ferocity. But the emotional strain was real. Adam's concept of self was deeply shaped by the weight of expectations, the never-ending travel, and the dread of disappointing a fan following that was fiercely protective of Freddie. Nevertheless, he stayed because he believed the music should continue, not because he wanted to be famous. Freddie's music was worthy of some airtime, and Adam believed he was intended to help that happen. Still, there was one truth he couldn't ignore. While Queen offered him a stage, he still wanted to rediscover his own voice. In private, Adam Lambert was sliding farther away from the aspects of himself that he had once worked so hard to defend, even while the world watched him dominate stadiums with Queen. Between tours, he attempted to return to his solo career, but every time he came into a studio, he felt estranged from the artist he had been before stardom. The glamour, the controversy, the expectations, everything had blended into a version of himself he barely recognized. By the late 2000s, Adam discreetly stepped back, not because he lacked inspiration, but because he needed to breathe again. That breath came with Velvet. Released in 2020 after nearly 5 years of soul-searching, it was the first project he built outside the machinery of a major label. Adam produced a nostalgic, funky, queer, and intensely personal album that was released through the independent imprint Empire without the influence of the music industry. Critics acclaimed it as his most polished work, a naked depiction of a man unafraid to explore sexuality, identity, darkness, and softness. However, the creative rebirth coincided with a period of turmoil in his personal life. In 2020, Adam began a relationship with Danish fashion professional Oliver Gliese, a match that looked delicate and reassuring at a moment when he urgently needed grounding. The two had a tranquil romance for a number of years, away from the cacophony of arenas and full of tiny pleasures and domestic moments. However, TMZ verified what fans had started to wonder in July 2025. The two had split quietly, cleanly, and without drama. The separation was cordial, but it left Adam with yet another turning point, another chapter where he would have to rebuild emotional footing on his own terms. And although he managed the spotlight with poise, Adam subsequently disclosed that the strain of everything, fame, pressure, traveling, and heartache, had impacted his physical and emotional well-being. By 2024, he had acquired weight, struggled with mood swings, and took antidepressants. He eventually resorted to WGI, then Mamaro, dropping over 60 lb. His physical metamorphosis became a mirror of something deeper, a fresh will to reclaim his life, nor for the public, nor for the industry, but for himself. Through it all, Adam realized something deep. As long as he didn't feel complete, success was meaningless. Something unexpected occurred as Adam Lambert entered the 2020s. The world finally began catching up to the version of himself he had been battling to protect since the beginning. Once afraid to call an artist gay, the music industry today celebrated diversity. Young performers who grew up watching him on American Idol told him he had helped them come out to their parents. Even stars like Lil Nas X commended Adam for opening doors that had earlier been welded shut. But while these acknowledgments were pleasant, Adam understood how much it had cost him to reach this position. Instead of slowing down, he broadened his artistic world even farther. He appeared in Bohemian Rhapsody, Glee, and the Rocky Horror Picture Show. He experimented with drag, makeup, and visual change, ultimately expressing his long-time love for cosmetics in ways that weren't conceivable during his early career. He used prosthetics to depict an elderly version of himself in 2023 to cover Billie Eilish's aging, thus addressing the terrible question that every performer must deal with. When the attention shifts, what happens? The video was unsettling, honest, and extremely intimate, proof that Adam had learned not to run from vulnerability. Then, 2024 arrived, bringing with it the moment Adam had been looking forward to since he was a young child, his Broadway debut in Cabaret. He took on the position of MC, which gave him the opportunity to combine his musicality, theatricality, queerness, and passion for character work into a single, captivating performance. He received accolades from critics. Audiences adored him. And for Adam, it was like coming home to a version of himself he had once lost in the maelstrom of celebrity. In 2025, he graced the Tony Awards red carpet in silver hair, glitter, and quiet assurance. When host Cynthia Erivo placed a microphone in front of him during the opening number, Adam delivered a single note so powerful that the audience exploded. It was spontaneous, unrehearsed, and unforgettable. In that one moment, the world saw what Adam had finally learnt to recognize in himself. A fighter, an artist, and a survivor, he had redefined the meaning of rising, falling, and rising again. Adam Lambert is no longer characterized by idolatry, controversy, or legendary status. His ability to persevere long after the applause subsided, and his bravery in continuing to transform himself are what distinguish him. Adam Lambert's career has been full of highs, hardships, and startling reinventions. And he's still not done. Which chapter of his narrative astonished you the most? Tell us in the space below. Hit like, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that delve deeper than the headlines.